It's Wednesday, April 19th, and this is now on HNN. A strong cold front batters Oahu, knocking out power to thousands and closing schools. We've got a look at your first alert forecast.
Neighbors were evacuated after federal agents discovered a suspected drug lab and explosives at a Makakilo home.
A series of shootings over the last week brings renewed attention to gun violence. I'm Nicole D'Antonio with the simple mistakes that seem to be putting Americans in the line of fire.
These stories, plus the latest move from Twitter that has the social media platform under fire once again. Details coming up on This Is Now.
Aloha and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on This Is Now. We've got a full house today. I'm alongside Ashley Nagaoka, and we also have our first alert meteorologist Jennifer Robbins here. The strong cold front that has caused some chaos earlier this morning is moving on down the island chain.
Yeah, that's right. Heavy rains battered Oahu overnight. We saw power outages, some school closures. We'll have more on that in just a little bit. But Jen, first, what's the latest with the forecast?
Well, now the storm is moving towards the eastern end of the state. It started as an overnight event for Kauai and also here. We're talking about winds, gusts up to even 40 to 50 miles per hour. And with that, that's why on the windward side, we saw those whipping winds, sideways rain, and you could see all of the moisture that's feeding into this system that's actually sitting over the eastern end of the state right now. And there's the cyclone to the northwest of the island chain. It's moving counterclockwise, spinning away from us, but the front is still impacting us. And we will be seeing some of the changes within the next 24 hours with much drier air filling in behind it, but we had those moist south winds that were feeding into this system, and we still have some flood alerts up, and that is actually for Hawaii Island. We do have flood advisories, especially over on Kona's side. We've been seeing very heavy rain there, and you can see the winds. And after this event, things are really going to shift gears, and we're actually going to be seeing some northwest winds take over, and that's back to trade winds that continue to feed into the storm, push away from us. As we can see the satellite and radar image earlier today, you could actually see that it was sitting over the western end of the state. Now we're seeing the heaviest of the showers over Maui, Hawaii Island, and the rainfall rates have been incredible, but we haven't seen anything too alarming when it comes to flooding, but we do have that flood advisory. But take a look at the base of Haleakala right now. That's coming down easily about 1 to 2 inches per hour. And then on Hawaii Island, that's where most of the action has been. We've been seeing anywhere from 1 to 2 to even 3 inches per hour. And the runoff has been a problem. And sometimes it's anchored to the terrain, as you know. And then at higher summits, we're actually seeing snow for tonight, so a winter weather advisory. And this is just a friendly reminder, the power of water, flood facts here for you. 1 foot can pick up cars, 2 feet can move SUVs. And now the movement of that first alert weather day that we issued yesterday. It started off with the western end of the state, now focused over Maui County and Hawaii Island for the rest of the day into the evening. But it's almost like night and day, clearing skies over the western end, and it looks like a great forecast for us as we head into the weekend and beyond if you're hoping to plan some outdoor activities. But be careful out there. Brown water advisories. Even though the surf may look tempting, you want to stay out, especially if it's brown. We've been seeing lots of brown water. I woke up this morning and looked out the window and you could see all the runoff across the island. But that first alert weather date continues for Maui County and Hawaii Island. For the rest of us, we're seeing those clearing skies, and they see much drier weather on the way for the 7-day forecast. But overall, those winds were incredible. I know last time we were talking about thunderstorms that came through. Ashley, you slept through it. And
Same
this was
this
kind
time.
of
Yep.
another situation
Did
where a
not
lot
hear
of people
anything.
did sleep through it. But here we had power outages, even at the station, right?
Yeah, definitely. Earlier this morning, I know they dealt with several early in the morning, so props to them for managing to keep us on the air. We also really quickly want to mention, we just learned of some road closures over on Maui. Pi'ilani Highway between mile marker 29 and 31 is closed due to flooding waters there, along with between... same area, Pi'ilani Highway. So if you are on the roads, be very careful today. Jennifer Robbins, thank you so much for your First Alert forecast. Now, earlier this morning, we also spoke with our Billy V, who kind of explained to us some of the conditions they were seeing earlier in the day.
Thank you very much. Coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning and coming into Kalihi. For those of you that live in Kalihi, you know how it is. You're coming down Waikimilo, you're headed towards the Nimitz Highway. You've got McDonald's on the right-hand side. You got Taco Bell, Bob's Barbecue on the left. But as soon as you cross McNeil Street, it's like total pitch black. It's like a wall of black, and from there on, there's no lights, no overhead lights, no street lights, nothing. No police officer on the scene directing traffic. And it was like that all the way through pretty much of the Kalihi business area, Mackay of Dillingham. So that's what we walked into early this morning. So with the power outage, there was some... about 25,000 people at one point without power this morning. Half of them were on the town side, and the rest of them were spread out in areas like the North Shore, the Windward side, the West side, over in East Oahu. But that heavy concentration was between Diamond Head and the airport, just without power this morning from about 2 o'clock this morning, and the power really came back up for a lot of people in the 8 o'clock hour, just as we got from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Torrential rain pour, gusty winds, and for some people, they were seeing a bunch of damage, but overnight hours were pretty interesting. The one nice thing is you didn't need a fan, you didn't need AC, because it was cold outside.
Yeah, Billy, we're looking at some of these images of the streets, as you mentioned, early this morning, just complete blackout. How did this impact the morning commute? Were some drivers delayed to getting on the roads, or did some people just wait it out? Did they hit on the roads? Was there a lot of traffic this morning?
I think that there wasn't a lot of traffic this morning because usually that Dillingham Waikimilo intersection is a busy intersection. So is Nimitz. But it was light all the way until about 7:30 this morning. And that told us that a lot of the people were either just kind of hanging out at home, not getting out in the roads just yet. After those lights came on, the traffic started to pick up within half an hour to be of what we would consider to be normal volume.
Yeah. Our Billy V, thank you so much for this report.
The severe weather knocked out power to tens of thousands of customers and snarled the morning commute. Casey Lund continues our team coverage.
Aloha from Windward, Oahu, and we're just above Kailua, Kaneohe. First, I want to show you just how much moisture we saw early this morning, creating those beautiful waterfalls, but also hazards for a lot of our mountains and those roadways that have mountains above them. Of course, you got to keep your eye out for falling rocks and debris. The poly remained open throughout the morning, and it didn't see a whole lot of issues. There were some issues on some other windward side roadways, but we want to show you again just how much rain came down here, very wet on the windward side. Early this morning, as I was coming over the H3 though, this view was completely black. There was literally no traffic lights, very few street lights. There wasn't a lot of light down there at all because most of Windward Oahu was in the dark because of all those power outages we saw overnight. There were also a lot of trash bins and other things in the roadway, some debris, which made things really difficult. We saw HPD out in places trying to manage that. There was some ponding on the roadway. It was a hazardous drive early in the morning, but as you can see later on, things really cleared up and got kind of beautiful over here. But just a word of caution that you could still run into some of those hazards on your way to or from work today. We also talked to people in town about the wild weather. Some of the worst of it happened while many of us were sleeping.
Were you surprised by the weather last night?
Oh, it was major. It was mean.
What was it like for you?
Was blowing pretty hard. I was on my way walking into town actually. I missed the bus, so I ended up parking it over here at Bob's Barbecue, and we was just chilling. But yeah, like I said, it was blowing windy, rainy, shaking the signs, everything. And then next thing you know, we had a power outage, and yeah, couldn't make it into town, but working our way back today.
Of course, we were dealing with our own power outages at the news station, so we had hiccups throughout the morning, but we appreciate those that stayed with us. And a reminder to download the Hawaii News Now weather and news apps for the very latest. Reporting on the Windward side, I'm Casey Lund. For now, we'll send things back to you.
The power outages also have led to a few school closures on Oahu. They are Farrington High School, Kalihi, Kalihi Kai, and Kalihi Uka Elementary, as well as Ma'ema'e, Nu'uanu, and Pu'uhale Elementary Schools.
And be sure to scan the QR code for all your weather resources, including a place where you can submit your weather pictures and videos to us. Again, this is the QR code that'll take you right to the H&N Weather Center. We turn now to some developments in that overnight police investigation in Makakilo. 10 families were evacuated on Avava Street as officers responded. HPD tells us this morning that the situation is now resolved. A Drug Enforcement Administration spokesperson says DEA agents conducted a search warrant on a narcotics investigation around 2 p.m. Agents think they found a methamphetamine production lab. The FBI bomb squad was brought in around 7:30 last night, along with officials from ATF. No word at this point if anyone was arrested. We've asked HPD for details and we'll pass them along as soon as we get them.
The suspects in a double murder in Maili are now in police custody. HPD tells us 23-year-old Jacob Borge and a 16-year-old turned themselves into HPD headquarters. The teen is not being identified because he is a juvenile. Police tell us they will be booked for murder in the first degree with additional charges pending, and they're accused of firing shots during an argument after a chicken fight on Kaukamana Road, killing 2 people and wounding 3 others. The victims have been identified as Gary and Kathy Rabaliza. They were related, and Gary was a father of 5. The other 3 people who were wounded were treated and have been released from the hospital. Meanwhile, Americans are struggling to make sense of the latest incidents of gun violence. Nicole D'Antonio has the story, which began when a Missouri teenager showed up at the wrong house.
The man accused of shooting a teenager in the head made his first court appearance in Kansas City. 84-year-old Andrew Lester is charged with first-degree assault. Police say he shot Ralph Yarl when the 16-year-old went to the wrong house to pick up his brothers.
There's no justification for the use of force other than he observed a black boy on his porch.
Yarl is recovering at home, but in upstate New York, 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis died after she and her friends drove up the wrong driveway. The local sheriff says the landowner opened fire on their car and was arrested for second-degree murder. And in Texas, a 25-year-old man is accused of shooting and injuring 2 cheerleaders in a parking lot when one of them opened his car door thinking it was hers. Guns are now the leading cause of death among children and teens in the U.S., higher than car accidents. It's a statistic that gun safety advocates call a uniquely American problem.
We are heartbroken here at Brady to see the ongoing historic levels of gun violence.
Christian Heine is with the Brady nonprofit, which works to address gun violence. He says shootings over trivial provocations are a symptom of the nation's gun culture.
These latest shootings are indicative of the ramifications of a gun lobby doing everything they can to sell fear in order to sell guns.
Fear may have been a factor in the Kansas City shooting. Police say the suspect told them he was scared to death, thinking the teenager was breaking in. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Washington.
Over on Kauai, Vincent Hilario has been convicted of murder again for the 2010 killing of a fellow drug dealer at the lookout above Anahola Beach Park. He was previously convicted in March of 2013 for the same incident, but a state court of appeals granted him a new trial because he was not meaningfully allowed to participate in his defense. Hilario faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. Sentencing is set for May 4th.
Federal prosecutors have arrested and charged Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Ross Andrew Brown with attempting to entice a minor to have sex. The 41-year-old appeared in court yesterday. He was arrested on Monday on allegations that he used social media to seek sex from a 14-year-old girl who turned out to be an undercover law enforcement officer. Brown remains in federal custody. His detention hearing is set for Friday.
The City Council will vote today on whether to cover the legal bills for 3 former city officials facing criminal charges for the Kealoha payout controversy. Former Managing Director Roy Amemiya, former Corporation Counsel Donna Leong, and former Police Commissioner Max Sword allegedly conspired to arrange a $250,000 retirement payment for Chief Louis Kealoha back in 2017. That's after he'd been informed that he was a target of a federal corruption probe. The council is expected to approve paying for those legal fees.
Challenge is that every city employee in the course of their employment is entitled to legal representation. And it's very unfortunate that we as the community, we as taxpayers continue to have to deal with the fallout from the many tentacles of the Kealoha case.
The 3 former city officials have all pleaded not guilty and said they didn't break any laws. Their trial is set for June.
Should taxpayers start subsidizing preschool teachers to keep them from leaving their profession? State lawmakers are advancing a bill that would increase their pay by nearly $6,000 a year. HNN Investigates reporter Allison Blair talks about the ripple effects.
The economic expert I spoke with says it's an idea worth experimenting with. Adding a program like this would likely end up benefiting more than just teachers. State education officials say a shortage of qualified preschool teachers is making Hawaii's childcare crisis even worse.
The average hourly wage is between $13 and $17 an hour, which we know is unlivable here in Hawaii.
Between 2018 and 2020, Hawaii lost 850 providers, or about 20% of the childcare workforce. Now, lawmakers are considering using taxpayer money to give some underpaid educators a raise. Through a pilot project funded at $6.4 million, teachers at Hawaii's infant and toddler centers, about 550 in all, would receive an additional $3 an hour. That equates to an extra $5,800 a year over the next 2 years.
I think a pilot program is a great idea here, particularly in a period when the state has some extra resources.
The senior researcher at UH's Economic Research Organization say potential gains created by a wage boost would benefit more than just teachers.
They go to the parents, who will find a better supply of preschools for their kids. This will enable them to work more, and for their kids to acquire really important skills that will help them down the road.
But adds a raise alone likely won't be enough to entice someone to want to become a preschool teacher.
Because the pay is low, if somebody needs a 4-year degree to get in, it's not clear an extra $3 is going to be bringing there. I think to look at a wage subsidy program as a policy tool that's going to be the sole policy tool necessary to spur individuals to enter this particular field, that's wrong. We really need to look at a complete policy package there.
Similar policies have already been instituted in Washington, D.C., Tennessee, and North Carolina. A spokesperson for Hawaii's Children's Action Network said in a statement, "We know these kinds of initiatives work in other states. The goal of this pilot is to see if it will work here." The bill continues to make its way through the legislature. Next, both the House and the Senate have to agree on everything before it's passed.
Maui County has agreed to pay state fines for occupational safety violations tied to the death of a 24-year-old firefighter during a flood in Kihei earlier this month. Trey Evans Dumoran was swept out to sea in January. A Hawaii Occupational Safety and Health Division investigation pointed out major missteps and included penalties totaling nearly $150,000. The citation states the Maui Fire Department personnel who responded were not adequately trained.
County has chosen to not challenge the findings of the HIOSH reports. This is such a tragic incident overall, and we as a county and each of our involved departments, we've cooperated with the investigation that HIOSH did.
The report also states that the supervisor on scene also wasn't adequately trained to recognize the hazards.
On Oahu, we've learned a movie trailer that was torched Sunday in Haleiwa was worth about $200,000. It was filled with costumes for the new Lilo & Stitch movie. Investigators say the fire was set on purpose, but so far authorities have not mentioned a suspect or motive. The fire is reminiscent of a much larger 1991 blaze that destroyed a whole fleet of trucks, vans, vans and equipment at 2 locations. The 2 men who were convicted were hoping to take over the rental business.
It almost reeks of old world organized crime activity, where you start taking over certain aspects of business.
It could be somebody on the North Shore who's tired of seeing all these trucks going back and forth. They just want to get rid of them.
Sunday's fire has been classified as first-degree arson.
If we don't get your information, you're going to force us to arrest you.
Because I won't give you my name?
If you have your son with you, we're going to have to call CPS. I don't want to do that.
Because I'm not going to give you my information over cat food.
Listen to me.
This is cat food. Do you know how insane this sounds?
That's the reality.
I did nothing.
Cat lovers clashed with DLNR officers in West Hawaii, resulting in 2 women being cited for allegedly harming an endangered species. The 2 Waikoloa women were cited after trying to feed feral cats in the parking lot of the Queens Marketplace in Waikoloa, which the state says has been attracting nene goose, putting them in danger. The property owner decided to remove 3 cat feeding stations, and more than 50 people showed up last night to protest. The activists say the real threat to the geese are golf balls, injuring dozens every year, and they argue that removing the cat feeders will actually cause hungry cats to attack the nene for food.
When you try to starve 100 or 150 cats, they will have to hunt. They'll have to be up during the day. The tourists will be feeding them. And they'll be feeding them their hot dog, hamburger. They're going to be getting sick. Then they're going to have the incident of vomit and fecal matter all over the shopping center. The cats will panic.
The protesters say instead of removing the feeders, DLNR should relocate the birds to a sanctuary. DLNR has a policy against feeding or maintaining cat colonies because they can carry parasites that harm native animals.
All right, let's take a live look outside once again. You would never know that overnight it was pouring here on Oahu with this cold front moving across the state. As you heard Jen Robbins mention, it's making its way down towards Maui County and Hawaii Island. Of course, we're going to have much more on this coming up on later editions of Hawaii News Now, as well as our weather app and online at hawaiinewsnow.com. And at this time, I think we're going to take a look at what the internet is talking about. What you got, Dylan?
Yeah, so first, Ashley, we are actually going to start off with some news regarding Twitter. Twitter is removing some protections in their privacy policy regarding protections for transgender people. Now, of course, it previously stated repeated use of slurs and language like that targeting... we apologize, this is the wrong video here. Let's pull it up right there. This is the correct video here. They are removing the protections regarding the use of slurs that constantly target trans people. And so this is another shift in the world of Twitter that some people aren't too happy about. Of course, a lot of changes there are taking place on Twitter.
Yeah, and you saw the other headline there, New at Noon, the Supreme Court is delaying its decision that could prevent patients from obtaining one of the most popular abortion pills on the market until at least Friday. So the announcement came hours before the midnight deadline today, and that may indicate there is division among the 9 justices. So the delay means that at least for now, women can still obtain mifepristone by mail as the legal battle continues. Now, the Supreme Court is weighing whether to more permanently block a decision issued by a Texas district judge, which suspended the FDA's approval of mifepristone on April 7th. A federal appeals court panel partially blocked the judge's unprecedented ruling, but still imposed restrictions that the pill must from being sent by mail to patients.
Yes, a lot going on there, and we are keeping an eye on all of it. Let's go ahead and wind down today with some good news. All right, we have now a very cute story. Just take a listen here.
Even though I won prom queen tonight, which I'm very thankful for, I would like to crown Martina Nelson as prom queen for tonight.
How adorable. That's right. A Mississippi prom queen gave up her crown to make another girl's dream come true. She shared her crown after being crowned prom queen recently. She goes to Pascagoula High School, and her name is Kiesia Alexis Thompson. She shared it with her classmate Martina Nelson, and both. Look at how beautiful they are, just radiant. We're so happy to hear that they are able to share this moment and basically live out their best high school fantasy. Everyone wants to be prom queen.
Yeah, we were talking. That's like the Mean Girls movie.
Exactly. The only thing is she didn't break the crown.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining us here on This Is Now. Ash is back, first at 4.